Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Gridiron 2023. Dr. Ron Poniewasz, along with Professor Larry Kelly. We are your Gridiron crew, a doctor and a professor talking football. How about that? And Larry Kelly is a member of the Luxembourg Garbett Kelly and George law firm. He's also the Shenango varsity baseball coach and a former ninth grade boys basketball coach at Newcastle. Larry, thank you for joining us and welcome aboard.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm wearing my Newcastle gear tonight. Hopefully we can turn the Red Hurricane around. But we're going to celebrate a WPL championship on Friday night, the 1973 Red Hurricane. They beat Mount Lebanon 3-0. I was actually a junior in college, came home to watch that game, and great memories. I actually wrote a column. Thank you for giving me a voice that'll run in the Newcastle News this week. And I had a chance to talk to a few of the players on that team and get some of their memories. It should be a pretty good story and a pretty nice night for the 1973 WPIAL champion, Newcastle Red Hurricane.
And that was a rocking chair under 3-0.
3-0. Great game. You know, what's funny is there's only been two other championships since 1973. In 1975, 0-0 tie with Upper St. Clair. And then, of course, in 1998, my dear friend Gary Schooley was the head coach. And they beat North Allegheny at Three River Stadium in the highest classification. Think about that. They won the Whitfield Championship in the highest classification at the time, which I believe was 4A. And that's the last one, 1998.
Reached the state championship game that year also, correct?
Yes, they did. They did, and ran into a Central Bucks team that they looked like the 67 Green Bay Packers. But it was a great run. And Newcastle football, they call it the glorious tradition. Nobody would love to see it come back more than me.
Sure. All right. This week we have three topics to provide to you. The athlete of the week. It's a young man that had quite a performance in a big county rivalry win. And then our second topic, we will give you our county rankings as we have now hit the halfway point. This week is we've made the turn, so to speak, and we're heading for home. So we'll give you our county rankings in the second segment. And in segment number 3, we will give you the schedule for the week. So first off, without any further ado, Larry, we will tell you about Union's Mike Gunn, a 6 foot, 185-pound senior running back, defensive back last week. Scored 4 touchdowns total. He had 13 carries for 90 yards, 7 catches for 92 yards, receiving touchdowns of 8 and 25, and rushing touchdowns of 30 and 2 yards in a 33-14 road win over Laurel.
182 yards of offense in one game is pretty special. But Mike Gunn's a special athlete. I happened to see his father today at lunchtime, and I said, if I were picking the athlete of the week, it would be your son. Little did I know he was the athlete of the week. And the thing about Mike Gunn that most people probably who follow Union know, as good as he is as a football player, he might be a better baseball player. He's a Division I baseball player, 6 foot, 185 pounds, speed to burn, great kid, great student, great family. Everything about Mike Gunn is 4 stars. He's a special athlete.
I'll go one better. It's 5 stars. Yeah, what a player, what a person. You said it with the student athlete. Great person all around, and what a fantastic game that he had against Laurel. And for the season, Mike Gunn has 37 carries for 140 yards, 17 receptions for 178 yards, 5 total touchdowns. And he's not a guy that gets lost in the shuffle at Union. You know, they have a lot of talent on that team, but he still gets his share of work, be it through the receiving game or rushing game.
Yeah, they got a few athletes on that team that are pretty good players, and he is one of them. And yeah, I guess you could be a 5-star recruit. I'm showing my age, but he is every bit of that, and so deserving of athlete of the week. And the Union Scotties just keep on rolling. Big win over Laurel last week.
Yeah, Union is now 4-1, and they have a non-conference road game against Springdale that we'll talk a little bit more about in our next segment. Any other thoughts, Larry Kelly, for Athlete of the Week?
Well, Mike Gunn, 4 touchdowns in a game is, wow, that's an outstanding performance. It doesn't happen very often in a high school football game. And when you get 2 rushing and 2 receivings, it even makes it more of an outstanding performance, because that doesn't happen often either. But, Mike Gunn's the real deal. Union is the real deal. And they will need Mike Gunn to continue to perform as they move forward. I still think that Union's the best team in the WPIAL 1A.
All right. Very good. Larry Kelly, are you ready for some rankings?
I'm ready, brother. Listen, I just don't want you copying me. I know they say imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, but yeah, I'm going to have you go first when we do our rankings.
Do you, when you're in court, you don't lie in court, do you? Because you don't expect people to believe that I copy off of you, do you?
I am an officer of the court. I would never tell a fib, and I don't lie here either. It just seems like, I give you my pick, and then yours tends to follow suit. But I'm okay with that. Imitation, let me say it again. It's the most sincere form of flattery. So I'm all right with that.
Well, as you would say, truth be told, Pete asked me for my rankings a while back because he's working on a graphic. So he has my official rankings. They were noted and passed over to him about 5 p.m. this afternoon.
Good. Then that's good. I didn't give him mine. So yeah, you're on your own. But
Yep.
my guess is they're going to be pretty close, except for maybe the top 3 spots are just up in the air. But I got to believe they're going to be pretty close.
Regardless, we're rooted in substance, Larry Kelly, not flash. Rooted in substance here. This week, we'll talk about our rankings. We talk with our minds with our rankings, and we'll do that next right here on Gridiron.
There's one thing I learned growing up around here. People should look out for each other, be friends and neighbors that you can count on. So it bothers me when people who are hurt in automobile accidents get bullied by the insurance company. I don't let bullies run over my clients. I do what I was taught growing up. Step up, stand up, and speak up for those who can't. I'm Larry Kelly, and I'm a Newcastle guy.
Okay, we're back with you here on Gridiron for our rankings segment. Larry Kelly, the Cinderella story is over. The players in the county, they're fighting for wins, and we're fighting for rankings. We're fighting for views here on Gridiron, my friend.
We are. I'm gonna have to up my game a little bit so we can get a few more views and a few more clicks. I might have to get a little crazy here. I might have to, you know what I mean, like get on the edge a little bit. Maybe I'm too old school, Ronnie. I don't know.
Yeah, well, got to bring some Dan Lanning enthusiasm to your game. That's what you got to do.
Nothing great was ever accomplished without enthusiasm, said
right.
Ralph Waldo Emerson to the graduating class at Harvard many years ago. Okay. So I'm fired up and ready to go. I'm ready to go. Let's go with these rankings. Let's go. I'm fired up and I'm ready.
Okay. First off, Larry Kelly, number 8. And in my rankings, number 8, I have Newcastle, which is 0-5 and on a 14-game losing streak. So that probably is all you need to know about number 8. You're number 8, Larry.
I'm the same way, and it pains me to say it. That's why I'm wearing my Newcastle gear tonight. It hurts me to say it, but you're right. They haven't won this year. Most of the games have been one-sided, and they've been struggling for the last 2 years now. So clearly, Newcastle's number 8 in the con.
Yeah, last week we mentioned it a little bit on air, and I know we talked about it off air. We were talking about the Steelers and Matt Canada and their offense and stuff like that. And I had heard going into the Raiders game, the first 2 games, the Steelers had 25 total drives and 12 of them were 3-and-outs. That was going into last night. And I got to thinking, I covered 2 Newcastle games this year that almost sounds like Newcastle, because they went through an entire first half against Mars without a first down and an entire second half against West Allegheny without a first down. And that's kind of important. You got to keep possession. You got to keep your offense on the field, and you got to turn it into points. And when you can't do any of those three things, it doesn't add up very well.
Well, here's all you need to know. Everything you say is true. And the facts are the facts, as we like to say in law. But Bob Vosberg, the former managing editor of the Newcastle News, kind of my journalism hero. I was a big fan of Bob Vosberg. He was the guy that took a chance on Larry Kelly and gave me a job. He's rolling over in his grave because we always had a reporter cover Newcastle football. It would have been unheard of not to. But I can't blame you guys now for not covering Newcastle football. I can't. Look, the games are one-sided, and there's no reason to go to these games now. And it saddens me. It breaks my heart. It really, really does. But you only have so many staffers, and I get it. And look, there's not much to cover or say about Mercy Rule games. So hopefully it changes. I'll be a Red Hurricane my whole life, so I'm pulling for the Red Hurricane as we move forward.
Okay, number 7 on the list, I have Laurel, the Spartans, at 1-4. Larry, they have plenty of youth on the team, very young team. You better have your fun this year with this team, because I have a feeling they're going to be kind of like next year's version of Shenango this year. They're going to cut their teeth this year. They're going to get experience, and then watch out next year, because they're going to be improved, another year older and more experienced. So have your fun with Laurel this year, because next year it might be coming for you.
Well, we're 2 for 2, because I have Laurel at number 7 also. But, you make a good point. Look, they played Union, a very, very good high school football team in a conference game. And Laurel put up 265 total yards against Union. And that's saying something, even though the score was 33-14. In my view, that's not a blowout. 265 yards in a high school football game, 155 on the ground, 110 through the air. That's making progress. And I agree with you. You better get them this year, because they're playing a lot of young guys. They'll come back with a lot of experience next year.
I think they only have 4 seniors too. I'd have to look at the roster, but they have a very low number of seniors too. So that bodes well for Laurel, certainly. And in addition to that Union game, Larry, Union stuck one in late in the game. It was 26-14. Certainly it's still a game. They stuck it in, from close range, but, you never know. You could fumble a snap and get it returned the other way for a touchdown, and, 14 points turns into 7 or whatever. But
yeah, statistically, that game was closer than the final score. And that says something. Laurel's going to get better every week, and they have gotten better every week. And that's just a result of good coaching. You may not have a winning season. I've been there. But you want to be better in week 12 than you are in week 1. And I think Laurel's heading in that direction.
Number 6, Larry Kelly, I have the Wilmington Greyhounds. Wilmington is 2-3 on the season in District 10 action. And Larry, they've rushed for, if you look at the stats, round about 1,365 yards on the season, which is 273 a game. They have averaged 26.4 points a game. And keep in mind, a couple of those games were high scoring. They had 42 in the first game. I think they had 49 somewhere else. But last week they got shut out against Sharon 18-0. They had a game where they won 21-14. Larry, they're moving the ball quite a bit between the 20s, but you got to stick it in the end zone. And this week, they better stick it in the end zone against Farrell, because that's going to be a big test for them.
Yeah, we're 3 for 3. I have Wilmington number 6 also. For years, Wilmington held that number 1 position. They did, and it was well-deserved. They had a heck of a run. But in high school football, when you're in a small school, you're not going to be loaded with talent or experienced talent every year. Wilmington ran a ball for 200 yards against Sharon. Not bad, but they need to be a little more balanced. They only threw it for 32 yards and you need a little more balanced attack. But defensively, they held Sharon down. Sharon only rushed the ball for 73 yards against the Greyhounds. Normally in a high school football game, you can't do that and win. So I think Wilmington's making some progress too. And just a question of getting better incrementally every week.
How much do you think they miss quarterback Tuff McConaughey, who transferred over to Girard, Ohio? And I saw a stat, being that I am originally from Ohio, Trumbull County, I see a lot of their game scores and write-ups and stuff. And I can't remember if it was after last week's game or going into last week's game. According to Max Preps, he's the state leader in passing yards at well over 1,000 yards. Now, that's only through 5 or 6 games. They started their season a week ahead of Pennsylvania. But still, that many yards, that's like maybe 2 careers worth of passing yards at Wilmington.
Well, it's hard to lose an experienced quarterback in high school and expect to continue your success. We've had this conversation. The quarterback in high school football is like the point guard in high school basketball, and it's like the pitcher on the mound in high school baseball. You got to have them, and it's nice to have experience at that position. And Coach Fillion knows what he's doing. I'm sure if the young man was still at Wilmington, he'd probably be throwing the ball a little more than what he's doing now.
Okay, number 5, Larry Kelly. I have Elwood City Lincoln. Elwood City Lincoln is now 3-2 on the season, and they suffered a tough 41-18 loss to Western Beaver last week. Had they won that game, they might be a little bit higher on the rankings, on my rankings. But nevertheless, when I was at that game, I first thing I thought to myself was, this is not the Elwood City Lincoln football team that they had trotted out there for the latter share of 10, 12 years or better. This is a much improved team.
Sure, and they're number 5 on my list too, so we're still matched up. Remember, Elwood City went through a period where they didn't win any games for 2 or 3 years. So if you're a Newcastle fan, don't lose heart. They can turn it around. This was a much closer game than the score, 41-18 ended, because I think what happened is Western Beaver, after Lincoln closed the gap to 8 points, put up a couple quick scores. Elwood City rushed the ball for almost 300 yards in that game. That's a good football team. The problem that they had, they gave up over 300 yards in passing. A lot of big plays from Western Beaver, who did the same thing against Neshannock. Western Beaver had touchdowns 45, 49, and 63 yards through the air. Just can't do that. But Elwood City's, that program has turned around. Categorically, you can say it's turned around. Again, when you rush the ball for almost 300 yards in a high school game, you're going to win a lot more times than you lose.
Yeah, Elijah Palmer McCain rushed for 216 yards last week on 38 carries. Just gave up, as you said, too many long passes. They were moving the ball down the field on the ground. Elwood was, and Western Beaver was just beating them over the top on long passing plays. Okay, Larry Kelly, number 4, in the top half of the rankings. I have your Shenango Wildcats.
How about those Cats, baby? It's a great day to be a Wildcat. They're number 4 on mine too, so we're still matched up.
Oh, wow. Okay. Shenango at 3-2 overall. They moved up by virtue of a solid win over Rochester. They take their spot at number 4. Had they lost to Rochester, maybe they'd be a little further back. Who knows? But they solidified their spot in the upper tier, and they've won 3 out of their last 4 games too. And that's going through a lot of injuries that they're battling.
Oh man, listen, how about those Cats? Andy Johnson kicked a 41-yard field goal. When's the last time you saw a 41-yard field goal kicked in a high school football game? And I believe that was on natural grass, because that game, I believe, was played at Rochester, if I'm not, no, or was it played? I'm sorry, it was played at Shenango. So still, 41-yard field goal is a big deal. But here's the deal. They threw the ball for 117 yards through the air. Then when he rushed it for 46, they need to be a little more balanced. I'm sure Coach Graham's talking about that, even as we're talking about it. But when you beat Rochester and they beat them, that's a big deal. Rochester has been the class of that league and conference for a long time. Shenango's turned the corner, baby. And a couple of my guys play on that team. So, Trey Ross, AJ Ferrillo, Sammy Patton, those are my guys, and they're playing well. And congratulations. I had them at number 4 also.
I raised my hand when you asked when's the last time you saw a 41-yard field goal? Just, I saw a 48-yard field goal by West Allegheny converted against Newcastle the week prior. So I saw a 48-yarder.
It doesn't happen often. It doesn't. Anything around 40 yards in high school is a pretty big kick. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Andy Johnson, who booted one through the upright from 41. Shenango's 3-2. Beating Rochester last week's a big win. And, look, they got a chance to build on that this week. So let's hope it continues. Okay,
number 3, Larry. I have the Neshannock Lancers at number 3. The Neshannock Lancers are 4-1. Quite a turnaround after their 26-0 opening night loss on a Saturday at Sharon. 2 straight 27-26 victories, one over Western Beaver, and last week at Beaver Falls. And that is not a win that you can sneeze at. That is as you would say, a big boy pants type of win.
Put your big boy pants on. I have Neshannock at number 3 also. So we're in perfect alignment. We're in lockstep here. However, let me say this much. Neshannock, they've won the last 2 games by a point. And that's good news and bad news. The good news is they've made big plays when they absolutely had to. They have. And winning teams do that. And teams with character do that. But if I'm Coach Mazzocco, I'm looking at that stat sheet and I'm watching Beaver Falls rush the ball for 354 yards on you while you ran it for 133. I'm a little concerned about that. That game was won on the defensive end. Pat Argero returned an interception, 82 yards for a touchdown, and Anthony Bonner had an interception, returned 23 yards for a touchdown. You're not going to get out rushed 354 to 133 and win a lot of ball games. So it's a good win. You'll take it. They made big plays when they needed to. However, they better shore up because you're not going to, at least in my view, you're not going to be successful giving up that many yards on the ground.
Okay. 6 for 6. Can we go 7 for 7 and they still get accused of stealing picks? All right. I have the Mohawk Warriors at number 2 on my list of rankings, Larry.
This is where we separate. Because that leaves. No, you have Mohawk number 2. No, we don't separate. I take that back. I'm Mohawk number 2. That leaves Union at number 1. We're in lockstep the whole way. Because listen, I had a hard time with this one. I had a hard time deciding who was the best team in the county and who wasn't. But the bottom line is they played head to head the first game and Union won. And listen, if they played again, that game went down to the last 20 seconds of the game, maybe. If they played again, it's going to be the same way. I see these teams not as 1 and 2. I see them as 1 and 1A. We're going to make Union 1. We're going to make Mohawk 1A. These are 2 great football teams. Both of these teams got a chance to win a Whippeal championship. They're that good. And the separation, if you can see my fingers, is this. That's it. The separation is one play in the last 20 seconds of the game. I think Braylon Thomas ran it in with about 20 seconds left. So these teams are 1 and 1A in my view.
Yeah, Mohawk has that one loss, as you mentioned, 40-35 on a Saturday night at Union. Jay Rona has thrown for 1,101 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Those are just phenomenal numbers. And that's not end of the season numbers, Larry. We're talking halfway point. So he could throw for over 2,000 yards and maybe 40 touchdowns or better because, again, we're at the halfway point. They will make the playoffs. Who knows? He could throw for 2,500 or 3,000 yards.
Well, listen to me. This kid is one of the best athletes to ever come out of Lawrence County. He's a 4-sport athlete. I told you he's a dead-eye shooter in hoops. He's a tremendous golfer. in baseball, he hit over 500. I know we couldn't get him out. And in football, as the quarterback, he's going to throw for 2,500 yards. Wow. And he's already, I believe, accepted a Division I scholarship to play baseball at Youngstown State. So they're getting that one heck of a player. And he has weapons around them. Justin Boston, another great game on the ground last week, 15 carries, 70 yards. And of course, Bobby Fadden, who's only a 10th grader, had 6 catches for 95 yards last week. If Mohawk is 2, and I have them as 1 and 1A, man, they're close. These are 2 really good football teams.
There's my
Perfect
number 1.
lockstep. We're in perfect lockstep. See, great minds think alike. That's great minds think alike. So our 1 through 8 are the same. And I'll tell you that the last 3 were hard to pick. It was very difficult to pick the last 3 because they were almost interchangeable. But listen, the Union Scotties are the real deal. And as I said, I think they're the best team in WPIAL Class 1A.
Yeah, had a little bit of a hiccup in a non-conference loss to Cornell. How are they going to back that up, or how are they going to build off of it, or bounce back from it, however you want to look at it? Well, they came back on a short week on a Thursday night and blew out Shenango at home, and then last week went on the road against Laurel, a young Laurel team. But hey, you never know. A team that grinds the clock like they do with ball control, and you don't have as many possessions, and they still manage to find a way to win by 3 scores in the end. Yeah, this is a very good Laurel or Union football team, Larry.
It's the balance of their attack that is impressing me. Last week, 217 yards on the ground, 164 yards through the air. Pretty tough to defend that. And they have athletes at every position. This is a good football team. As I said, I have them 1, but I have Mohawk as 1A because they're right behind them. And, Neshannock's a great football team also, but I'd be a little concerned if I was Coach Mazzocco. I don't like giving up 350 on the ground, and only rushing for 133. But that's a good staff out at Neshannock. They'll get that turned around. So it's going to be exciting, brother. It's going to be exciting down the stretch. We're going to talk about the schedule here in a little bit, but a bunch of these teams have some breathers this week. So hopefully they'll be able to catch their breath and keep moving it forward.
All right, that is our rankings. The Cinderella story is over. That is it for rankings, Larry Kelly. We have talked with our minds on this segment, and we will tell you
to hear what our viewers think. They can go on Twitter and send us their rankings if they differ. If you believe Mohawk should be number 1 and Union should be 1A, I want to hear that. Or if you believe Neshannock belongs in that number 1 spot, put it out there and give us your argument, right? The Newcastle News certainly has a Twitter account, and so does Larry Kelly. I'm at LockKelly38, so you can find me. And if you disagree, let me know.
And let's put a disclaimer on it also, Larry. We're both going to say we're czars of the world here, and we're both going to get our way. Let's say that Mohawk did not play Union, and they both have 1 loss. They both lost to whomever. Union naturally their loss would be to Cornell. Pick a loss for Mohawk, maybe to Laurel. That was their closest game because they scored over 40 points a game in their other 3 wins. So if they both have 1 loss, who do you rank number 1? You've got great talent on both teams, great stats on both teams. Maybe a lot of this is maybe we're both saying, well, head to head. Okay, we're throwing that out. Now all bets are off. They're both 4-1. Who's the better team? How do you pick?
I'd give the nod to Mohawk in that situation. I would. I mean, this Jay Brown is the real deal. I mean, not that Braylon Thomas is, because he is. They're great. I would flip them if they didn't play each other, because this Mohawk's putting up numbers in high school football games that are just unbelievable. But they're that close. So they're 1 and 1A as I see it. Okay. But I would put Mohawk number 1. I almost did it. I almost did it here, but you can't do that when head-to-head Union beat them.
Okay, you're no longer czar of the world. I have to take away that power, or else you'll think you're czar of the world from this day forward. No longer czar of the world until we revisit.
I'm not even czar in my own house, so I can't be czar of the world. Marisa Kelly is the czar of the Kelly household.
I'm the czar in my household. That's what you call bachelor.
That's because you live by yourself.
That's right. That is correct. Right there. Okay. All right. So that is our rankings, and we will come right back with our schedule. Don't go away.
I became an attorney because I believe in hard work, fairness, and human decency. In a word, justice. Our workers' compensation clients deserve justice because in an instant, their hard work turns into hard times when they get hurt on the job. No doubt, life is tough, but so am I. I've been fighting all my life, and I'll keep fighting for you. I'm Joe George, and here in Lawrence County, it's personal.
We're back with you here on the scheduled portion of our show. These games are all Friday night, September 29th. They are 7 p.m. kickoffs. We have no Thursday games, no Saturday games this week. So everybody kicks it off on Friday night. First off, Parkway Conference matchup at Taggart Stadium. Montour 1-1 in conference, 4-1 overall. At Newcastle 0-2, 0-5. Last week, the Canes went to Central Valley and came up short 42-14 on the road. Larry Kelly, your thoughts on Newcastle playing another power?
It's going to be tough against Montour. That's a good football team. But if you're a Newcastle Red Hurricane fan, come on out Friday night. I'm going to be at the Newcastle game, to support those guys from 73. It's been 50 years. Those guys are all in their 60s. I know them all. We're close in age. I was older than those guys. But it should be a great night. I want to go out there and support those guys. And maybe just having those guys around will inspire the Red Hurricane to give Montour all they can handle Friday night.
Larry will be at Taggart Stadium, kissing babies, shaking hands, taking donations from anybody that'll give it to him. That'll be Friday night at 7 p.m. Laurel 0-1, 1-4 in the Big Seven at Rochester. A kind of an upset Rochester team, maybe as you might look at it. 1-1, 3-1. The Rams are coached by Shenango graduate Gene Matsuk, and we say they might be a little bit testy or upset because they got beat last week at Shenango 18-6. I don't know if a whole lot of people thought that was coming.
No, nobody. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. Rochester's a good team. Laurel got to go on the road. Rochester normally has speed that is unmatched, and a young Laurel team's going to have a hard time at Rochester on Friday night. But the Laurel team is getting better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mohawk 2-0 in Midwestern Athletic Conference action, 4-1 overall at Elwood City, which is 1-1 in league, 3-2 overall. Last week, Larry, when talking to Coach Dan Bradley after the game, he told me, he says, we're going to have to get a lot better in defending the pass, or Mohawk's going to throw it all over the lot against us as well. So they're going to have to get on the practice field and clean that up, or Dante Retort and Bobby Fadden and those kids will be running free in the secondary, dancing in the end zone.
This is not going to be a cakewalk for Mohawk. However, again, and because this Elwood City team is so much better than teams in the past, but they gave up 338 against Western Beaver, and I think Mohawk, their passing offense and passing efficiency is even at a higher level. So they better be prepared to guard it, and I'm not so sure they're going to be able to match the speed and the intricacy of Mohawk's passing game. So I look for a close game, but the Warriors through the air are just too good. And this game's on artificial turf, and those kids can fly from Mohawk. So Elwood's going to have a tough time, especially if they cannot, defend the pass. But one thing that Elwood does is run the football. And when you run the football, you control the clock. And if you control the clock, you got a chance, especially if you can get a few turnovers. It could change the game around. I see this as a little bit of a closer game, but Mohawk's the real deal.
Yeah, we'll have to keep this in mind for down the road, Larry. But when you look at it, there's 4 teams that make the playoffs out of each conference. So Midwestern Athletic Conference. You got to think Mohawk's going to the playoffs. You have to think that Neshannock's going to the playoffs. I believe Beaver Falls will find a way to the playoffs. That's 3. So that loss to Western Beaver could be damaging to Elwood City, because now they're a half game officially, but they're a full game behind Western Beaver because they lost that head-to-head. You're going to have to beat somebody that maybe you're not favored against. Maybe the people don't think you're going to win. You're going to have to find a win somewhere, and then you're also going to have to hope that Western Beaver possibly loses to a Freedom, a Riverside, somebody like that.
Yeah, I agree. Elwood's going to have to beat somebody where they're not favored, but they're capable. This is a good football team. As I told you, they ran the ball against Western Beaver for almost 300 yards. That's a formula for success.
Yeah. Elwood has played 5 games on the year, as everybody. All 5 of those games have been at home, naturally, because if you remember last year, they were getting the new field turf and they were playing home games away because their field wasn't ready. Well, this year they make up for it by getting those games that should have been away. Now they're home. So they're home this week. They're home next week against a bad New Brighton team, winless New Brighton team. And then the first road game that Elwood City has is Friday night, October 13th, Friday the 13th, and Elwood City travels to Beaver Falls. That's a really tough test for your first road game of the year, which it's 3/4 of the way over for the season.
Yeah, I agree. But listen, this is a better football team. Again, you could take heart because I think they went 2 or 3 years without winning a game.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're a Newcastle Red Hurricane fan, you can take some heart in that. It can be turned around.
Neshannock 2-0 in Midwestern Athletic Conference action, 4-1 overall at New Brighton, 0-2, 0-5. Larry, we've talked about it. Neshannock had one heck of a win last week on the road against Beaver Falls at Geneva College. This week, though, I'm sure Fred Mazzacco is going to be preaching to his kids, hey, they're 0-5, but guess what? Play them like they're 5-0 because you can't have a letdown. You can't be, celebrating too much. Last week's gone. You got to play this team like they're a 5-0 football team.
You got to come ready to play. But one thing, Neshannock, their offensive and defensive lines tend to dominate play. They didn't do it last week, but they tend to do that. And I don't think New Brighton has enough firepower for the Lancers. I look for the Lancers to win big on Friday night.
Mm-hmm. Shenango, your guys, the Wildcats, 1-1 in Big 7 action, 3-2 overall at Northgate, which also is 1-1, 3-2. However, Northgate has their opponents, I believe, have 4 total wins. Riverview owns 3 of those wins. I'm trying to think who the Springdale has 1 win, and they also beat a winless Summit Academy team. So that's where their opponents' wins have come from. So don't look at Northgate's record and say they're on par. Again, Shenango's in the same spot as Neshannock. You got to go on the road after a huge win, but play like you're the better team because they are the better team, Larry.
I think the Shenango is the better team. They have more quality wins, especially the win against Rochester last week. Look, you got to keep doing what you're doing, and it's a game they should win, but it's on the road. Northgate's an hour away. It's an hour on the bus. They're high school kids. Protect the football. Let's not turn it over. And if you protect the ball, you got to do a little bit better on the ground. We threw it for 117 yards through the air last week. You got to be a little more balanced. We only ran it for 46. If we do that, we should come back from Northgate. When I went on the road with my baseball team, baby, we stop at McDonald's on the way home. So, Coach Graham, bring a little extra cash. I think you're going to beat Northgate and stop at that McDonald's on the way home at the intersection of 422 and 79.
I got to get myself an honorary coaching gig on your team so I can get McDonald's. What do you think?
Yeah, and if Sammy Patton's on the bus, make sure you bring a little extra money. My man likes to eat. So, yeah.
There you go. Okay, Union non-league game. Union 4-1 overall at Springdale, which is 1-4. This is non-conference, so Kim Needballa, I'm sure he's going to want to get out there and just tell the kids, hey, let's have fun like we always do. Let's play good ball and let the second half be a running clock. Get in there and get out of there injury free, so you can get back into the conference play the next week.
That's exactly probably what's going to happen here. Again, it's a long ride to Springdale on a school bus. It's about an hour Let's not get anybody hurt. Let's not turn it over. Let's work on our execution. The danger isn't against, teams like Springdale. When you're a Union, you could still win big and not execute. Let's judge, our performance, not necessarily on the final score, but on the execution offensively and defensively. And let's make sure we take care of business and dot our I's and cross our T's.
Okay, and lastly, we have in District 10, Region 3, classification 2A, 3A. Both of these teams are 2A. Farrell 3-0 in region play, 5-0 overall at Wilmington, which is 1-3, 2-3. And Larry, we've went from a few years ago where this was the game of the year, regular season, and then the playoffs to now it's seemingly just it's a game on the schedule, and you harken back to the way it used to be. I don't think this is the game that you anticipate like it was a few years ago.
No, it isn't. Again, Wilmington's a little down this year. Farrell's loaded. I believe they have a Division I running back at Farrell who's just been tearing it up. The fact of the matter is, you're right. This was the marquee game of the year for about, 3 years in a row? 1 year, I think they played 3 times or something like that. And Wilmington, they held their own. They got a bunch of victories against the Farrell Steelers, and not everybody can claim that. It's going to be a little tougher on Friday night.
Yeah, and that's more media based in terms of it's went from game of the year to not the game of the year. However, that doesn't mean that these two programs, they don't get up for each other. I'm sure Wilmington has it circled and they're ready to go, and Farrell knows what to expect from Wilmington, and they're not going to have a letdown. So that doesn't diminish where these teams are at with their records.
Don't be surprised. Again, one thing Wilmington can do is run the football, and if you can run the football and chew up the clock, and they're going to need a few turnovers. If they can get a couple turnovers in the game, Wilmington is still capable of beating anybody.
That's right. Okay, Larry Kelly, we've had our rankings, our athlete of the week, and our schedule. Any other thoughts from you, my friend, before we wrap this up?
No, it's getting exciting. It really is. And we're halfway through the season. And as we move forward, there's still some marquee matchups that are going to take place in the Connie. And I'm anxious to see how they turn out. And again, if you don't have anything on your schedule Friday night, go out and support the 1973 WPIAL champion Newcastle Red Hurricane. There was a lot of great players who had great careers, both in football and afterward on that team. I mean, Rick Rosano played in the Super Bowl for the Cincinnati Bengals. Nick Rapone is a coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. John Latina may be one of the best offensive line coaches in the history of college football, played on that team. And let's not forget Mark Mangino, who was the consensus coach of the year in 2007 when his Kansas Jayhawks won the Orange Bowl. So, man, that team had a lot of talent. Joe Allegro played at Ohio State. Rick Toney won 2 national championships at Westminster. Rick Sumner, people don't know this. He was the quarterback on that team. He was first team All-State that year. You know who second team All-State was in the year 1973? Behind Rick Sumner, Joe Montana. You ever heard of him? He was second team All-State. So, again, Gilbert Lewis played at Arizona. That was a really talented team, and they had some great players who went on to have great careers, both in football and outside of football. So come and support them if you're not doing anything.
All right. Sounds good. He's Larry Kelly. I'm Ron Poniewasz. We are signing off. Our Cinderella story is over for the night. We will be back with you here next week on Gridiron for another athlete of the week, a secondary topic in our schedule. Enjoy the games, everybody, if you go out. And as Larry said, if you're going to watch Newcastle, enjoy yourself. That's going to be quite a night for the 1973 team, and hopefully the Canes can get them a win too, and snap that losing streak. So we'll see you back here next week, everybody, on Gridiron.